Under the same moon, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. And how do we stand in love's pure might? Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World. How many of you would agree that we're living in critical times, hard to deal with? In fact, we're hearing about these wars and all the reports of wars. Trying to navigate through all of this, we're trying to figure it out together. And that's why it's beautiful for us to come together as Watching the World 777, great people from great places, right? But today, would you believe there's a new attack potentially in Washington, D.C., a place that I'm about to journey to over the next couple of days? Wondering, should I drive? Should I fly? All of these things I have to consider now because we're having all sorts of issues develop. In fact, today at the Capitol, they had something occurring with the white van. We're going to get to that right now and try to make sense of it all. As you come in, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. I really do appreciate that. We have two Deborahs in the building. Two Deborahs. Would you believe? That's so amazing. Welcome to you guys. We also have Uncommon Woman. Thank you so much for all your support. Let's get to it.
We have some breaking news to report on this Wednesday, and take a look at this. A very active scene just outside of the White House over in Washington, D.C. This live feed courtesy of our partners at Fox 5 in D.C., and apparently a van has driven through a barricade just outside of the White House. We're waiting here for the photographer on the ground to reposition themselves and hopefully get a closer look here at this scene once again, as we are also seeing law enforcement clearing out what looks to be that crime scene tape just to prevent people from driving through this entire area. But you can see there a lot of those law enforcement vehicles still in the area, some of them.
So this is happening in Washington, D.C. We're going to keep our eyes on it. But it goes to show, because of what's happening on a grand scheme in the world, we have to be careful in every neighborhood. You cannot come to the conclusion, well, I live here, I have no worries. In fact, you should be worried no matter where you are. And we're not trying to instill fear, but we're trying to be wise as we move forward in life.
Driving around, it could be that they are possibly clearing this. But our team in D.C. following this closely, and they say this: a Secret Service investigation is underway near the White House after officials say a van drove through a barricade early Wednesday morning. This is what we know so far. The Metropolitan Police and Secret Service responded to the vicinity of the White House around 6:30 a.m. after a van drove through a barricade at Connecticut Avenue and H Street.
A lot of times when we go to crime scenes or if we're covering a case, the media is often put into a particular barricade. Often, just as the public, we have to stand behind a barricade. So that's why a lot of us are trying to broadcast. We're looking into a camera, we're looking into a phone, and you have to be observant and know your surroundings and also position yourself properly, because people are now starting to run over barricades and they don't care who they hurt. In fact, their intention is to run over people. So we have to use some sort of discernment when it comes to just positioning.
The driver of the van was apprehended, and according to police, no injuries have been reported. And there you can see that very active scene that I just mentioned moments ago.
Porsche's a 5-hour drive. Thank you.
Now, as a result of the investigation, multiple streets in the immediate area have been closed to traffic, including 15th Street and East Street Northwest and East Street Northwest, and H Street Northwest between 15th and 17th Streets. Drivers are advised to avoid the area and seek alternate routes, and commuters traveling through downtown Washington should expect delays. Officials have not yet released further details. This is, of course, in development.
Yes, this is happening now in Washington, D.C. throughout this morning. Shout out to you, James. Nice to have you back. Great support of the channel. So, guys, let's keep our eyes and ears open to this story as it develops. I will continue to report if something's major developing. I'll be sure to post it for you. But now we're going to have a chance to look at this whole situation in Iran. Remember, I showed you extensively when we did the deep dive the other night that the foreign minister of Iran basically said, listen, Witkoff and Jared Kushner, they came to the table and we were trying to negotiate with them. And all of a sudden they came back with bombs, right? So that's what Iran is trying to say, how this all developed, right? They also try to make it seem that they were deceived. But it's very important to get both sides of the story. So today we're going to have a chance to actually hear from Witkoff. We know that he is the prime negotiator for Donald Trump, and also backing right to his side is Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law. So let's take a look and let's see what he has to say so that we could try to figure out, what's really happening here and what's the true motive of this whole commitment that they have driven in the Middle East. We're also going to take a look at what some of the senators are having to say. They're actually pushing back on Donald Trump when it comes to this matter. But let's listen to Witkoff.
Special Envoy Steve Witkoff joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir.
Hi, Greta. How are you?
I'm very well. So, since you are the chief negotiator, and sort of to take a look at what efforts were made by the United States to
Thank you, KJ.
negotiate with Iran before we struck, can you give me an idea? Do you have any idea, or do you remember how many times you made trips overseas to meet with Iran?
Well, before the first action, Operation Midnight Hammer, I'm pretty sure that I went there 6 times. Europe and Muscat.
Now, as we check out this information, I have a lot in store for you today just for our news at noon. But one thing I want you to keep in mind, when they talk about the midnight hammer that happened back, I believe, in September, I want you to ask yourself this question. The president of the United States said continuously that Iran is no longer a nuclear threat. We took out their ability to develop a nuclear weapon. But I want you to pay attention to what they're saying now as to why they went into Iran, even, right, if he said previously they are no threat. Pay attention.
Included.
And then after Operation Hammer, which was last June, about how many times did you meet with them or even speak to them on the phone?
Well, when the last round of negotiations started, Jared and I visited with them, negotiated with them 3 separate times.
In all that time, was there ever any indication they wanted to budge?
Look, they claim that that they were ready to make concessions, but there was no palpable evidence of it. In the first meeting that we had with them, they actually opened up. I mean, there was an accurate.
Guys, keep in mind that I have been following Donald Trump way before he got into politics, especially when he had the show The Apprentice, right? One thing to keep in mind about the president of the United States, whether you like him or not, that's a whole different discussion. But once he offers you a deal, the deal doesn't get sweeter if you kick around at the bushes trying to figure out what you want to do. And we saw that. In fact, I showed you guys when I went to the courthouse here in New York City with Nicolas Maduro. Donald Trump gave him an opportunity to take this deal. And the more he pushed back and said, oh, come, we're going to take you guys out, the worse the deal has gotten. And the deal got so bad that he's sitting in a jail cell similar to Sean Diddy Combs down in Brooklyn, where he is being housed along with his wife. And we're seeing the same development when it comes to these other countries. In fact, Colombia started pushing back on Donald Trump, but he put the heat on the president in Colombia, so much so that he came to the White House and basically said, oh, yeah, we're going to follow what you say. So pay attention. Donald Trump is setting the stage so that if you are a president of another country, you really can't sleep well at night because you never know when the boogeyman is coming for you, and that's the United States military. I'm just telling you, these are the hard facts.
Aircraft carrier out there, but they actually opened up that they had the inalienable right to enrich. And our response was somewhat along the lines of, we have or President Trump views it that we have the.
Guys, I'm going to stop the show for 1 second. SRP says, could it have been an Iranian who did this? I'm assuming that you're asking about Nancy Guthrie. From the beginning, I felt like someone did it from a very high level. Whether it's Israel, Iran, Mexico, we don't know. But it seemed like whoever did this they covered every base, so much so that the FBI can't even figure out what's happening. But we don't know for sure, but that's a really good question. I'm just telling you what might have happened.
The inalienable right to stop you from enriching. And that's just how the negotiations began. Sort of a strange way for them to negotiate if they were there to make compromises and to stand behind the statements that they were only using nuclear for the greater good of their society, which is what they said to us.
Well, explain this to me. Is that, as I understand it, the United States offered to, at one point, to give them free, I assume other nations have pitched in, enriched uranium to meet medical needs as well as power, which is far less than that you need.
Okay, I'm going to stop again for a comment. And thank you so much, The Rock, next president. Thank you very much. I want to address your comment. It says everything in the Bible is playing out. Let me explain that to you guys briefly. In the Bible, it speaks about, in Revelation, talks about Armageddon. And a lot of these religions, right, even when you go, each religion has a book, right, an ancient book that is referring to the Bible. We know the Bible speaks about these things and that we're looking for this destruction, end of the world, and then you have paradise. It's almost like everybody wants to go to heaven. Nobody wants to die. And all the other holy books have some apocalyptic element to it. So a lot of these individuals that we're going to war with, they actually are looking forward to these wars. They're looking for something to, as they say, pop off or jump off so that they can get to this holy nirvana, this state of paradise, this state of everlasting life. And so when you're trying to live a constructive life, you're trying to take care of your family, you're trying to plan for the future, you might be going up against a guy that doesn't care about his life or yours because of the indoctrination that they have from their holy books or from the way that they see their God. And that's a big difference when you're fighting a man who's doing it because he see his God is blessing him for taking the lives of innocent people. And it's quite scary, I must say.
For a nuclear weapon. Was that ever on the table to Iran, and did they reject that?
At the last session, Greta, we actually said to them, we'd like to see you not enriching, and we'd be prepared to give you free fuel for.
So notice the deal. He's breaking down the deal of what this is basically the final deal, that this was right before the United States came in along with Israel, right? Israel is the catalyst behind this movement, but he's breaking down what they offered the Iranians in this particular deal.
At least 10 years, perhaps longer, that would allow you to power and do the things that you claim you want to do on behalf of your people. And they.
Thank you, The Rock, and thank you guys for subscribing. Thank you for liking and sharing. I really do appreciate it. The channel is growing, and we're on the road to the White House.
Said, their response was sort of awkward. It was, we don't need you to do that for us. But of course, if you're intent on enriching, if you're intent on stockpiling, if you're intent on getting towards a weapon, then what you can't do is take fuel from somebody else, because it would come to them enriched already.
So basically, the United States is saying, look, imagine if Iran was actually Canada or Mexico, and you see how they're making with these ballistic missiles. They're really making it rain missiles in the sky of Israel. And even though the mainstream media is not reporting on it, if you go to social media, even though you have to be aware, there's a lot of AI, but there's also a lot of truth. And now we're starting to see, they're starting to report that the Iranians are dropping bombs and they're decimating Israel. And I don't think that was planned into this whole arrangement. But anyway, LLO says they lie about everything. Americans should never believe these fools. It's very important. We're not being told the truth at all times. And people that try to tell the truth, right, often they don't have a happy ending.
At a level that can never get them to a weaponized instrument. So that didn't work for them for the obvious reasons.
Well, that ought to mean, obviously, that's sort of a clue, because that's a deal of a lifetime, because they get everything they wanted.
Now, again, I'll tell you, this man here, Witkoff, right, Steve Witkoff, he is the top negotiator for the United States. You really want to follow him and stay in tune with what he has to say, because he's the mouthpiece for America on behalf of the President Donald Trump.
At no price, if that were indeed what they wanted. With whom were you dealing at this last meeting?
We had the foreign minister, Abbas Arachi, and...
Okay, so did you catch that? They had the foreign minister. The other night I showed you what the foreign minister had to say, and he basically said, we hope the Americans come in with their ground troops because we have something for them. Not only will they have a hard time coming in through the terrain like Alexander the Great, right? Still the same land, okay? But they're also going to have trouble with our 1 million troops who are ready. We've been looking for the Americans or whoever else to come with this war, and they have a stockpile of missiles that are beyond compare too. So we know that the Americans, our military is probably the best in the world. But again, the things that are coming out of the foreign minister's mouth, the person that met with him, is quite different. And in fact, they're going to rejoice in taking the lives of American troops, the young girls and boys in the military, all personnel, right?
His deputy at the meeting, and there was some other staff there as well.
Did you have a sense that he had any authority, or was he just sort of talking to, and then he was going to go make a phone call to the Ayatollah or somebody else? Did he seem as a foreign minister to be able to bind the country?
No, actually not. And I said it, and I think it disturbed him to say it, but I didn't say it to be disrespectful or impolite to him. I said to him, first of all, their intention was to have conversations with us.
We're starting to hear the Democrats especially talk about America committing war crimes, right? We're hearing it if you really cover the media. So that dovetails nicely to the question that Kyle has presented. What happens if another country indicts Trump? Well, we saw America indict, right, Nicolas Maduro. Again, I told you I will be in court again with Nicolas Maduro at the end of this month. Although we are able to do that, I would not bet a nickel that another country would come and try to take Donald Trump. There would be all hell to pay whether they agree with his actions or not.
Indirectly. In other words, be speaking through an interlocutor who would then pass messages. And if you're there to make a deal, that's just not a format that works. We needed to. He did not have approval to talk directly to us on the telephone. Texting, maybe, but this was something that, if it was going to be settled, would have required round-the-clock activity, and we never had the sense that he had that authority, and if he had that authority, that he was prepared to execute.
Guys, one day, Nicolas Maduro was the president of Venezuela. Whether he was legitimate or not, everybody can debate that forever, right? But according to the United States, he was not legitimate. One day, he's the president, right? He's the king of the land, so to speak. The next day, he's sitting in New York City. They, in fact, flew him into Newburgh, New York, not too far of a region from me, okay? Now he's sitting, as James says, in the MDC, and it's not a nice holding ground. In fact, Sean Diddy Combs was there, Tekashi 6ix9ine, and so many more, and they often talk about the food. Sean Diddy Combs said there were roaches around. There's a lot of paranoia because in many cases in the MDC, a lot of times when we think about jail and prison, we think about individual cells, But in those cases, they have the open floor plan. So basically, while you're sleeping, 100 guys have access to go through your stuff or whatever. It's not secure at all. And think about it, Nicolas Maduro and his wife are under those type of circumstances because he did not want to make a deal with the president of the United States. Thank you, James, for all you're doing.
It. We never saw.
And by the way, guys, James is an attorney, a lawyer, a counsel. It's great to have high-level people on the Watching the World team. I appreciate that thoroughly.
Leave the room as we set down boundaries or red lines and say, let me get a steer from someone back home. That would be something that would be very customary for me and Jared, and it was anathema for him.
Were they
Shout out to Pretty Teen. Shout out to Deborah. Shout out to Gold Digger. You guys are amazing. We have Stella in the building. Everybody's holding it down.
negotiations, though, cordial? I mean, sometimes you go into negotiation and you're not going to wheel and deal, or you've got your own red line or whatever. But nonetheless, it could be quite cordial. Was the foreign minister cordial to you? Because he's mocking the United States now on Twitter. He's making fun of our gas prices.
Yeah, I had a very aggressive confrontation with him in the last session that we had. We actually started in the.
Okay, I'm going to stop the show again for a comment. Kyle thinks, keep it coming. He says the Bible is based on lies. The Bible, in many cases, and you know how I get because I'm in a Bible scholar program, so I won't go on a tangent today, but that is a valid concern that people have, and I take you seriously here when you say things like that. We will do a show eventually talking more about the Bible history and why people are so affected and believe that Bible prophecies are being fulfilled today. And I'll show you how the Hebrews wrote history, and whoever writes history are usually the winners of war because the people that are decimated or killed, they no longer have a voice. And then you have the Greek scriptures that essentially came out of the Roman Empire, under the Roman Empire. Why do you think it says the Roman Catholic Church? And why is it today that the Catholic Church, the same Romans that took the life of Jesus, allegedly, right? They are leading Christianity today. So we could get into all that, but thank you for your comment.
Morning, Greta. Said to him, why don't we take a break? We'll go back to our foreign policy team, Jared and I, and we'll brief them on where we are, and we'll get a steer from them. And we came back and made a proposal, an updated proposal with regard to fuel, but also with regard to no enrichment and how long that would last, no sunset, things of that sort. And he started yelling and screaming. And I was very calm with him, as I recall. I said to him.
So he's painting a different picture of the foreign minister. The foreign minister, we watched it the other night with our deep dive. He made it seem like everything was honky-dory and they were trying to negotiate. Well, here we're hearing something quite different, that he was actually yelling and screaming, right?
Well, maybe you'd just like me to leave and we can just call it a day. And of course he said, no. But it's hard. Look, in the first session that we had with them, he acknowledged, even boasted.
Know Your Lord says the U.S. is trying to bite off more than they can chew. We can just envision that. What a good illustration. Thank you.
That they had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched material. That 60% enriched material is roughly 1 week to 10 days away from being 90% weapons grade.
That's right, Gold Digger. When you're being lied to, you don't really know how to move forward or what could be coming down the pipeline. Thank you, Gold Digger.
That's a statistical fact. He then said, you and I both know that is roughly 11 bombs worth of material. So that's valuable. And
okay, guys, Dan says Israel is a terrorist state. Well, if they're a terrorist state or not, the United States is backing them in this action. So you have to factor all this in.
We know we have it, and we know we have it. What are we going to do about it? That's how that session began. And that session, at some point during its course, also had another line from him where he said, we're not going to allow you to take diplomatically what you couldn't militarily. So it was him contesting the
So basically, he's saying that Iran was talking junk, right? They wanted all the smoke. And guess what, folks? They got the smoke. Sherb says Obama had a non-nuclear deal, and it was working until Donald Trump was jealous with the deal and rip it up because they didn't like Obama and there was peace. Iran did not break the deal. So we see the variation of different people and how they feel about this action, this conflict in the military, that to this day in the mainstream media, they do not want to coin it as a war.
fact that we had destroyed most of Natanz, Fordo, and Esfahan, which of course we did. We destroyed almost all of it. It was complete destruction there. But I think what he was referring to is the fact that they manufacture their own nuclear equipment, which is in itself insidious and dangerous.
That's right, Jim. We are at war. Of course, they're going to fight back. When you have a fight going both ways, it looks like a war, smells like a war, sounds like a war.
And that he could easily reconstitute. And I actually took it as this warning. He could reconstitute, even in a small amount, and get to take himself to 90% weapons grade and pose that level of threat if he got his hands on a weapon. And it was curious to us why.
So you guys get the idea. I wanted you to understand both sides of the game. So we've heard from the foreign minister. Now we've heard from Steve Witkoff, who basically he's the leader in chief under Donald Trump when it comes to negotiation. But I want to ask you guys a question. If you knew that Iran, China, Russia was coming to the Americas to really cause mayhem, would you prefer to have Donald Trump leading the way and how we would fight back and preserve life? Or would you rather have Joe Biden? So put in the comment, let's get a feel for if another country was coming after the United States, boots on the ground or whatever, who would you feel would have a steady hand in that case? Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Be honest and tell us how you feel in the comments. Let's get to it. Now we're going to switch up a little bit. Karoline Leavitt was asked some tough questions, and let's see how she answered.
Pakistan, Pakistan is a neighbor of Iran, and Pakistan is also an ally of U.S. President has been praising a lot about the field marshal. Is Pakistan providing any kind of support in this war against Iran?
That I will have to check on with the Pentagon and get back to you. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. The president said yesterday that President Putin told him he wanted to be helpful in the Middle East. The Kremlin put out a statement where Putin said, quote, "I would like to reaffirm our unwavering support for Tehran and our solidarity with Iranian friends." How does the president think that Russia could be helpful, if not helping Iran? And did the president...
So she's basically asking, we heard the rumors that Russia is back in Iran. What does the president think about this, right? Asking those hard questions. Notice how she answers.
Push Putin on Russia sharing intelligence with Iran in this war.
The president and his special envoy Witkoff have both said that, of course, they've sent a message to Russia that if that was taking place, it's not something they would be happy with, and they hope that it is not taking place. As for further...
Okay, most people are saying they would rather have Donald Trump. In fact, James says that Joe Biden was sleeping for 4 years. Okay, thank you guys. We get an angle of what people think in regards to the leadership style. But it looks like if we really had our backs up against the wall, people are saying Donald Trump. All right.
Details about the discussions between these two leaders, I'll leave it to the president to divulge any more of that conversation. But he did...
Deborah says sleeping, riding a bike. Oh, my God, Deborah. How did he move forward? Oh, my.
Confirm it yesterday and provided you with a little bit of the background and his view and his perspective, as he always does. Luke.
Regarding...
Okay, so she answered without giving an answer, is what we expected. Now we get a chance to hear from Rand Paul. Let's check him out. He actually sat in this meeting with Donald Trump, with the leadership team to hear the briefing about the war. And notice how you ever see a person go through a traumatic situation and they walk out and they say, "Oh, my, you look like you saw a ghost." All right, so this is what we observe here with him. But let's notice what he says because that's more important.
Welcome back, and we are back with Senator Rand Paul after getting an update from Secretary Pete Hegseth and General Kane there. Let me bring back the senator here to talk more about where we are in this war.
Thank you, Sher, for liking the podcast. I really do appreciate it. We have great people here. It's the people that really push the podcast. It's not me, because if the people were not here, we wouldn't have a podcast. Thank you. Watching the World has great people backing it and far sharper than I am. Thank you.
And Senator, thanks very much for your flexibility. Before we went to that press conference, you said that it's obviously typical and regular order to have any war decisions begin in Congress. Now, you've heard an update. Pete Hegseth, just after honoring our fallen heroes, he said today is the most intense day. Today we'll have the most strikes, most fighters. He's been giving regular updates. Do you feel that this has been sufficient? Have you heard what you need to hear in terms of the goals and the reasons for this war in Iran?
Okay, so pay attention to what he's saying. He's really going to break down how he feels. Now, keep in mind, he's not new to the table. He's been around a long time. Notice what he says about this action in Iran.
Well, first of all, my sympathies do go out to the fallen. One of the soldiers this week was from Kentucky. Many of the soldiers transit through Kentucky, through our military bases, and that is our first concern, is for their safety and well-being. As far as the reasons for the war, there have been many different reasons floated, but none of them, I think, have been very convincing. One reason is that we want to free the Iranian people from oppression. I have a great deal of sympathy.
Okay, so one of the reasons why we're doing this action is to free the Iranian people from oppression. Okay, so he's addressing that.
I want people to be free around the world, but if our foreign policy is to free oppressed people, I'm not sure where war would end. I mean, there are many people that are said to be oppressed in China, Tibet, the Uyghurs, North Korea, Russia. Where would war end if our goal is to free oppressed people? So I think that goal is too grandiose and would perpetually tie us up in war. Another statement has been made, well, they're a week away from a nuclear weapon. You can take clips from...
Okay, so we keep hearing that they're just a week away from a nuclear weapon, when we heard that the Action Midnight Hammer back in September pretty much took away their ability to have a nuclear war. So which is it? Again, this is coming from someone that's high-ranking, someone that has been doing this a long time.
The 90s, all the way through the present, of people arguing that they're a week away from nuclear weapons. Then there were arguments made where their ballistic missiles are almost able to reach the U.S. But then our intelligence countered that and said, really, they would be 6 months to a year if they made that.
Another reason we heard pushed by Netanyahu specifically is that the Iranians had missiles, ballistic missiles that could be a threat to the United States, that these missiles could reach us, right? But again, he's saying that, oh, wait a minute, intelligence has said that's not true. As Maury Povich would say, that's determined to be a lie.
We were also told their nuclear weapons were obliterated, and now we're told their nuclear weapons are just moments away from being a bomb. So I guess I don't think the arguments are valid, and I think war should be the last resort, not the first resort. A war of choice is not my choice.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, these are such heavy subjects in terms of the potential for a nuclear bomb for a terrorist nation.
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. We have a lot of information today at lunch. Thank you so much for all the support.
The largest or the biggest supporter of terrorist proxies that we've seen, should we really take that risk?
Well, nobody wants them to have a nuclear weapon, but we were told their nuclear stockpile was obliterated. Right. Their program was completely destroyed 6 months ago, and now we're told maybe it's...
Okay, we have someone in the audience. Oral says, I'm 65. I was hearing this since the 70s. Okay, thank you. So the same narrative has been pushed for many moons.
Being resurrected and rejuvenated. So I think it's unclear what the actual truth of that is. Either it was obliterated or they're on the heels of doing it. But we know the arguments that they are moments away from a nuclear weapon have been used repeatedly for decades now.
Okay, so that backs up what Oral just said. He's saying we've been hearing the same narrative for decades. knock it off, right? Knock it
These
off.
are not new arguments. And so the question is, what are the limiting rules of engagement? When will we stop having war in the Middle East?
Right.
I really admired President Trump's rhetoric in both 2016, 2020, and 2024 against being involved in Middle East wars. My fear is that we get drug into a long process here and that chaos results. The order doesn't come from this. Chaos. Most of the wars we've been involved in the Middle East have led to chaos, not more stability.
So what would have been, in your view, the proper response to a rogue nation repeatedly threatening Israel, repeatedly threatening the United States with phrases like death to America while they are building nuclear armament?
Yeah, I think no evidence that a nuclear weapon is being built or close to being built. They were enriching uranium, and they've been willing to negotiate over that for a long time. Now, there's a question of whether or not you can trust them, and most of your enemies you can trust only so far. But there were legitimate negotiations going on. There wasn't a resistance, actually, to negotiation. The negotiations in Oman actually were progressing, and there was a sign that Iran sensed their weakness and that this was an opportune time to obtain a negotiated settlement.
You guys see the video I posted the other night? Boots on the ground, but sometimes I be in dangerous places. But you have people here in New York City, large groups setting fires in a group, and they're chanting death to America right here on the American soil. And here we are trying to navigate by trains and driving down through these expressways with people who live in the country but want Americans to die. Somebody tell me, how does that math work, right? These are some serious times, and we have to move forward judiciously.
People don't believe that one of the things that's being said now is that we're going for unconditional surrender. That's what we went for with Japan. And of course, Japan had attacked us. We lost 400,000 soldiers in World War II. And so we fought that to a conclusion of unconditional surrender. But it required 2 nuclear weapons. Are people prepared to have nuclear weapons demolish 1 or 2 cities in Iran to get to unconditional surrender?
Yeah.
The other principle we have to ask is, can a country be liberated if they don't fight for their own liberty? There are many Iranians in exile saying, we've got to send American troops in there. And I wonder why they aren't there. I wonder why they aren't there fighting for their country. But liberty can't be won by other people. Liberty ultimately is won by the people.
All right, so we get an idea of what in fact, I'm going to show you more, but we get some hard questions being asked about this action that's happening in Iran. I think critical thinking is great. That's why Watching the World exists, because we test all sorts of theories and ideas. But now we're going to look at something quite different. Iran, would you believe, they just sent out a whole barrage of missiles again to the different surrounding areas, right, of Israel. People that really weren't headlong into this conflict, but they struck these particular nations because they have Americans, they have the troops on their soil. And so this continues to happen. That's why the other day, all of the people who were just on vacation in Dubai, a place that I've been to, I definitely wanted to go back. I have to second guess that now. But they were just enjoying life. Some of them were in the airport heading back to the United States and other places. And then all of a sudden you see and you hear the bombs coming down with no warning. Like, what's really happening? Let's see what just happened again. We saw the first round when the first war started, right? The first rules of engagement. But notice they have struck these regions again.
Again, in the Middle East, Iran has launched new attacks on Gulf Arab nations as the war rages on. Eyewitness footage released today shows debris in the capital of Bahrain. Iran reportedly killed 1 person and injured several others in a strike on a residential area there.
These people are hitting just civilians, right? And you heard about what's happened to 175 young girls. Their lives were wiped out in this action, and now they're trying to point fingers that it was the United States or perhaps Israel that did it, right? All of this we take into consideration. Skinny Tub says Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq all showed brute force model does not work. Thank you.
Incoming missile sirens were also heard in the United Arab Emirates, and officials in Saudi Arabia and in Kuwait say they shut down drones. Now, according
Peace to you, James Page.
to Lebanese state media, Israel also carried out new strikes on Lebanon overnight. The Israeli military is targeting members of the Hezbollah militant group, which is backed by Iran. And yesterday afternoon, President Trump told CBS News, quote, "I think the war is very complete, pretty much," end quote. Discussing Iran, he added, "If you look, they have nothing left." Here's some of what he said at a press conference in Florida last night.
We're very proud to be involved in this, and it's going to be ended soon. And if it starts up again, they'll be hit even harder.
Now, as the president delivered those remarks in Doral, Vice President J.D. Vance traveled to Kentucky last night to attend the dignified transfer of a 7th U.S. soldier killed in combat with Iran. The U.S. service member has been identified.
You know, we're living in a strange time. A lot of people do not like the president, Donald Trump. But again, as the questioning demonstrated with the answers, when the heat comes, people want to be standing in Donald Trump's shadow because they know he will fight in war and he really don't take a whole lot of hoopla. So it's a weird dynamic. In fact, people, when it comes to a group, they will not say they like Trump. In fact, the whole group will say, oh, Donald Trump is terrible. He's a felon. He's this and that. But when you talk to people on an individual level, it's a weird how some people that talk about him that way, they actually trust his judgment. So we haven't quite seen this type of dynamic, but it's something to consider.
This 26-year-old Army Sergeant Benjamin Pennington. The U.S. Central Command says he died Saturday after being, quote, seriously wounded during an attack in Saudi Arabia earlier this month. Meanwhile, here in the U.S., energy prices continue to climb.
Oh, my goodness. Gas prices are going up. How is gas in your neighborhood? Has it risen? Is it going down? Tell us what you're experiencing in your local area. Tell us what state. When you tell us the price of gas, tell us what state you're in.
As the conflict in the Middle East continues. And you see the numbers in front of you. The national average for a gallon of regular gas is...
You know what's funny? Yesterday, everybody's talking about gas prices are going up, going up, going up. Oh, my God, I'm going crazy. I can't even pay for all this extra gas. And Donald Trump, along with the press secretary, they were actually talking about how the economy is better, prices are going down. So how do you make sense of all of this? Is prices going down, or is nobody really realizing what's happening here? Or are we just being fed propaganda? That's a fair question. We're just looking for fair, honest answers.
Increased by 6 cents since yesterday and by 43 cents since last week. Immediately prior to the start of this war, the national average was $2.98 for a gallon. All right, and we've got team coverage on all of this for you this morning. Remy Inocencio is in our London bureau, but let's begin with CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand standing by at the White House. Good morning, Natalie. What else are we learning from the president and his intentions when it comes to this war with Iran and a potential end game?
Yeah, good morning to you, Errol. In that news conference Monday.
Okay, I'm pretty sure she has something great to say, but we're going to move on now. We're going to see how Donald Trump appointed Erika Kirk. Would you believe? Oh, my goodness. Candace Owens is going to have a hot flash over this, I must say. But Erika was appointed by Donald Trump. What does this mean? Let's check it out.
Well, welcome back. We are learning that President Trump has appointed Erika Kirk to the Air Force Academy's Board of Visitors.
Kirk will take over her late husband's position, that is conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The board gives recommendations for changes to the Air Force Academy, also provides an annual report to the Institute's morale, academics, and financial state. So the board consists of 16 members, including Trump's newest pick for Secretary of Homeland Security, Senator Markwayne Mullin.
So now Erika Kirk gets to sit on top of the mountain and tell everybody who ate the cucumbers, right? She looks like she's fit for that type of job. What made her so valuable to do this? Well, we're going to find out perhaps, but I can guarantee you guys one thing. Candace Owens is not happy about it at all, folks. It's quite something. I'll have to check out her channel just to see what she has to say about it.
Spokesperson for the White House saying in a statement that Erika will continue her husband's legacy and be a fearless advocate for the academy.
Let's take a look, I should say, at some business headlines on this Tuesday. AI company Anthropic is suing the Trump administration after officials designated it as a, quote, supply chain risk. The company is also asking a judge to block President Trump's.
Okay, so we'll keep our eyes on Erika Kirk. I will be flying out to Utah to cover this trial in regards to Tyler Robertson. So if you'd like to see that type of activity, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay tuned to all of these federal cases that I cover. Also will be flying to Texas to cover Carmelo Anthony. He's a young guy who took the life of another school student, allegedly. So we're going to check all this out. I'll be traveling a lot. That's why when we think about all the risk in the world, it makes it hard to consider traveling. But folks, it is what it is. We got to keep our boots on. Let's move on and talk about Nancy Guthrie. We have some new developments in regards to a neighbor. I'm not sure if I want to believe the narrative. I'm still struggling a little bit. Sometimes people come up with stories after the fact, so we just look at it. We just stare at it. But I'm not sure if I want to believe it. Let's get to it.
Yeah, so we spoke with a neighbor today who I hadn't spoken to yet, who lives right around the corner from Nancy, very, very close, has lived here for a long time, knew Nancy, they used to walk together. And she had a very interesting story, Jesse, because she says she saw a suspicious man walking in the direction of Nancy's house sometime around February 11th, which is a very significant date because that is the date that we know FBI agents were asking other neighbors if they had any Ring camera footage from that day. Listen to what she told me, Jesse.
So this is my window that I'm getting ready in the morning, and I saw him out there. So I couldn't make out his face. He was in kind of street clothes, not shoes that you'd walk in, and he had a baseball hat really low, and he was kind of hunched over, and he was kind of looking around, and he just didn't fit. And he wasn't going terribly quickly like a normal person that's getting exercise.
James, you and I both, we're such critical thinkers, but that's a very important part of life, right? You have to have some critical thinkers. They keep everybody safe, keep you from wandering down these roads that people try to carry you. We don't know what happened, but we are considering. We're going to listen to her and see what happened. I actually remember her location of her house when I was out there for over a week because of where her house was positioned. So we'll have to see. Let's continue.
He was kind of going slowly, and when he walked by this street, he really took a long look at it.
And I actually misspoke. I said February 11th. I actually meant January 11th. So it would have been a couple of weeks before Nancy went missing on February 1st. And all the neighbors in this, it's the kind of neighborhood, they know everybody. They know, if someone doesn't look like they're normally here. It's that kind of a place. So that really, really stood out to her. And she says she has since talked to the FBI about it.
You know what's so interesting? I'm really happy you did that interview. Sometimes we don't think about what's that community going through. Obviously, there are those who knew and loved and care about Nancy, but they have been at the focus of this for weeks. They've been living through this for weeks on top of the fact they were probably incredibly nervous in the first few days about their safety in the community. Which brings me to an overarching point. What is happening in the overall investigation as far as you can see? Is it winding down? Hopefully not. Are they still canvassing? I read a report, maybe there's no more cadaver dogs out. Are they at a roadblock right now? Are there things going on behind the scenes? What can you tell us?
Okay, guys. Tammy says no one saw anything because she isn't missing. Her so-called neighbors say they didn't even know she lived there. All right, so that's a different way of looking at it. Some people are saying that this whole story is potentially made up. I've heard scenarios in regards to Savannah. So we'll have to see what happens in regards to this case. James says, talk about a Wi-Fi jammer. They are almost impossible to obtain, very illegal, and that's not something you buy at Walmart. Very good point. Was that a Wi-Fi jammer? And why would the person have brought along a Wi-Fi jammer and wasn't able to jam the video that is very incriminating, especially that has the person walking up on the house, right? So we have to wonder, a lot of people are debating whether or not it's a Wi-Fi jammer or not, or could it have just been a walkie-talkie, right? Perhaps, but I guess we really don't know. The issue about this case, after going out there myself, is that the sheriff has been the mouthpiece in regards to Nancy Guthrie's case, okay? And he hasn't given the information needed for people who are looking in to really make a clear distinction as to what may have happened to her. Let me explain. We have no clue if the person came through the front door or the back door when they ultimately entered the house, right? So we don't have a clue. He keeps mentioning about DNA inside the house that's mixed. Why would it be mixed? Where did they get the DNA from? The toilet? Like, what does that mean? Right? We don't have a clue as to where in the house the DNA was positioned as well. There's a lot of questions when it comes to the individual that came up to the house. In fact, when they put out the video, they also put out a steel frame, but the guy has on clearly different shoes. So, did that steel frame come from a different day? Or did it come from maybe a couple hours ahead of the arrival to her house? Why didn't they give us any type of explanation as to the steel frame? Are they looking to, they know there's so many, what we call net detectives out there. Everybody's trying to crack the case. Everybody has their own motive as to why they're there. Some people are there just for clicks. Some are there for trying to get get some of the money from, associated with the ransom. All of these things are happening, but the detectives and the sheriff is not giving a clear indication. In fact, by the time many of us probably heard about the case, there was already 2 or 3 press conferences that had already happened. And I went back on the deep dive and I showed you guys on the very first night when the sheriff is standing there, I assume in her yard or right by the road. He made it very clear that he called in the homicide unit and he kept saying that this was a crime scene, but he would not tell anyone about the blood sprinkled by the front door. Well, how did we learn about the blood sprinkled by the front door? Well, we heard that from none other than Brian Enton, the fellow up there with the black coat on or jacket on. And so once he revealed, because how was he able to enter a crime scene and take video of blood by the front door? Well, it's because the sheriff on the second day released the crime scene back to the family. And therein you find what happened with us now getting the video of the blood. So then, lo and behold, at the next press conference, then the sheriff talks about the blood. In fact, he wasn't asked about the blood. You could tell he was looking down, and it was one of his golden talking points. So that was something. So that shows that he's watching all of the media. But there's a whole debate about what does this blood mean? And you get so many retired, never seen so many retired FBI agents that are coming forward. And the thing about it, all of them have a different scenario because, again, everybody is striving after the wind, trying to figure out what happened. The sprinkling of the blood, there's drops of blood all by the front door. Well, the sheriff hasn't even made any clear indication as to how much blood was inside the house. So again, anyone trying to figure this out from afar is going to be stuck for a mighty long time. In fact, we see a lot of people stuck on stupid, trying to figure this thing out and just coming up with bogus scenarios that don't even make sense, right? And again, right from the beginning, we heard from some of the online sleuths that the son-in-law, that they had a source that the son-in-law, a federal agent, basically said that they were looking at him, or someone in the sheriff department said, oh, they're looking at him. So now you see all the pictures and videos of the son-in-law and Annie out and about in their little car, a Honda, what have you, and they have their heads down, taking all of the pressure because everybody wants to point fingers at someone, and everyone wants to be the first or know what happened in regards to this case. And the thing that has everybody drawn to the case is we're like 39 days out and we don't even have a clue. And it appears now that the sheriff and the feds don't have a clue as to what happened in regards to this case. This is quite puzzling, I must say, and I'm not sure if we're going to figure out this case or hear distinctly what happened. But I would always say that Occam's razor, if you get a chance, do some research as to the theory of Occam's razor. The end result is going to be simply stupid. It's going to be something simplistic. Because her daughter was such a prominent individual, still is, so to speak, right? And you have people dissecting her life, saying that her contract was up, and maybe because her contract was up, this is all a family plot. There's just so many different ways of looking at it. But probably when it's all said and done, they're going to find out perhaps it was someone from the neighborhood that she had some sort of dealing with. Perhaps they wanted to essay her. And a lot of people don't want to hear that because she's 84 and we live in a world that glamours looks and beauty. And those are the people that are highly sought after. But if you just do a quick Google search, you'll see that this young guy, he just essayed a lady, 94 years old this week. Go look up this case. I didn't want to cover it because YouTube has a way of shutting you down when you use the R word, and it's used heavily in the video. So I didn't want to play it. But people say a 94-year-old, why would a 16, 17-year-old do that, right? So it goes to show we can try to figure things out forever, but when the real truth come through, it probably will be so simple and not a lot of whistles and bells that we tend to add to it because we're not given enough information. And when the sheriff doesn't give information, he leaves a lot of holes, and everybody's trying to fill in those holes, and people are trying to be the first to know, and this thing gets out of control, and it all just puts money in somebody's pocket. That's what it boils down to, people. But speaking of money in pockets, would you believe that the sheriff is being sued for $1 million? They're trying to cook him like the Thanksgiving turkey. Let's get to it.
It's been 5 weeks since Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy, was abducted from her home. Now the lead investigator in the case has been named in a...
James, as I stood in her front driveway, I kept feeling like perhaps it was something within like a 2-mile radius. I think it's going to be something so simple and someone that somehow got a chance to know her, maybe even briefly, but I don't think it's a whole big, I think you're right on the money, James, when you say you believe it's someone who lives within a 5-mile radius. In fact, when you see, I want you to do an experience. I want you to go back and look at the video of Nancy Guthrie, as far as the guy walking up. And I want you to ask yourself, does he look like a young guy? The way he's moving, right? He looks up, right? And compare it to the older guys you know in your family. Just take any random guy, Uncle Joey, Grandpa Tom, Billy Joe, Billy Love, anybody in your family, and then take this guy as he's walking up and say, does this look more like a teenager or early guy, maybe in his early 20s? Or does this look like a guy that's in his 30s or 40s that typically have some sort of belly bulging, as they get older, right? What does this person kind of look like? I think you can start to understand that it might be a person that's much younger than most people would imagine. But we don't know for sure. We're just speculating as everybody else is. But thank you for that comment. Let's get back to this here.
$1 million lawsuit, and the plaintiff is also demanding a personal apology. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos was already under scrutiny for his handling of the Nancy Guthrie case as the search for the missing 84-year-old continues with no suspects. The president of the Pima County Deputies Organization told the New York Post that it's a common belief within the agency that, for Sheriff Nanos, this case has become an ego case. Another law enforcement source told the tabloid that the sheriff has turned the case into a spectacle that has raised more questions than answers, calling it a disastrous media cleanup tour.
I think the investigators are definitely closer. We got a lot of intel, a lot of leads.
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. New Jerseyan says, press the thumbs up at the top of the screen. Thank you, cousin. I really do appreciate you. Deborah says, that cuff on the sleeve would be a clue too. All right, that's real detective work there, Deborah. You're keeping your eyes honed in on what's really happening. Thank you very much.
But now it's time to just go to work.
Nanos and his department are under scrutiny this week for a separate issue after a Pima County jail inmate filed a lawsuit claiming a deputy put his life in danger during a COVID-19 lockdown. Christopher Michael Marks, who was found guilty of shoplifting in late 2024, says he could have died after the deputy failed to disinfect himself before traveling between 2 units of the facility, one of which was under quarantine after an inmate tested positive for coronavirus. According to court documents, Marks claims Nanos failed to do enough to protect inmates, calling the lack of oversight a threat to his safety that put his life in jeopardy.
All right, so there's all sorts of things happening there in the local area. You know, the thing that really troubles me, think about all of the young individuals, perhaps even the guys you see on the First 48, any type of crime. When was the last time you've seen the younger generation actually wear a gun holster like John Wayne? You know, who actually brings a gun holster to any type of event, right? Nowadays, people typically put it right under their belt, under their, some probably in their pocket, all sorts of places, but it's never in a holster that's right there in your front of your midsection. Any type of man would not want to wear a gun by their midsection. I don't think I have to explain why for that, right? So that makes me a little leery about this, right? Who would do that, right? Either this is some sort of staging, or maybe the person had some sort of military background or law enforcement background. They're more prone to wear a gun holster or have the, you know, they're more familiar with that. So all of these questions that we have, but I've never seen, even on television, someone wearing a gun holster in their midsection. And that's why a lot of people feel like, in fact, it's symbolism, or perhaps it was a female, maybe a female that identifies as a male. But most people cannot get past the eyebrows. Deborah says, I saw a woman's eyes. And how about the appearance of a ring? Great, great detective work there, Deborah. You're right on the roll now. You're getting all the points today. So again, we don't know, but these are all questions that everybody's asking.
He also alleges conditions at the jail violated the Arizona state constitution. Marks is seeking an apology from the sheriff and $1,350,000, which he says he would use to provide apartments for unhoused people. 6 months rent-free, no strings attached.
Think about this, right? I want you guys to think about it. And I'll try to say this without getting too graphic, right? But imagine if things had have gotten really hot and let's say the feds came, because keep in mind, when your camera goes off, your family in Honolulu could be tied into that camera. Somebody could have easily called the police, right? How does the person know in all the time that they're, you know, twinkling around that someone hasn't called the police, right? As a man running with a gun in your midsection, that's not going to work for anybody, right? How in the world can you run with a gun in your midsection? That's like a recipe for disaster. So something does not add up there. I remember one time when I was a young guy, and I don't want to tick anybody off, but today I'm here for it. My grandmother used to be a Michael Jackson fan. I was a Michael Jackson fan growing up, right? But I never forget, somebody asked my grandmother, who, rest in peace to my grandmother, she says, why does Michael Jackson always grab his crotch, right? You know, why does he always do it? My grandmother says, probably because he don't have one. And man, boy, I laughed my head off that day. I still laugh about that. My grandmother said, probably because he doesn't have a crotch, right? So again, we have to factor this in, because any man running with that gun there, oh my, you're going to have a serious problem, right? And if it goes off, then Huckleberry Finn, you'll be out of there. So all of this doesn't add up in any shape or form. We do not know. But let's keep moving. I don't want to take you guys to all of these. It is too funny, though, I have to say. Okay, so we have a sad story here. Again, it shows you how people are going missing and people are taking children. These guys are such low lives. Let's get to it.
News here. Newly released body cam video shows the moment Florida
Just look at him. He looks like he's having trouble, right?
deputies found a missing Gastonia teen. Authorities say that the young girl was in the car with a much older man. Queen City News reporter Matt Stell shows us more of that released video and also has what those Florida sheriff's deputies are now saying about the driver's arrest.
Young lady, you wouldn't happen to have your ID on you, would you?
No, sir, that's my little cousin.
That's your cousin?
This is the...
So he's lying off the bat, saying that this girl that he's being a predator on, he's saying, oh, it's just his little cousin. Check it out, folks.
Moment when authorities say 37-year-old Joshua McGrath from Charlotte is pulled over and caught in his car with a 16-year-old in Crescent City, Florida on Sunday.
Your name?
In your wildest guess, where do you think that this guy in his 30s was able to find a 16-year-old? Just take a wild guess. How did he stumble across her? How did she find him? Let's see what you guys say. We have a lot of detectives in the audience.
Huh? Your name?
My name is Brandy Lewis.
Brandy Lewis?
But as you'll hear in this body cam video, the deputy then realizes that's a fake name.
Here's the thing. Right, the name and the information you gave me doesn't come back to anything. So I need you to write your full name.
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. That's right, Deborah. That's right. That's right, James. Online. That's right, Pretty Teens. Online, definitely. Frosty, social media.
Your birthday. Write on this pad of paper for me, okay?
The Putnam County Sheriff's Office says the teenager, who they later learned had been reported missing from Gastonia on February 16th, then gave the deputy a wrong date of birth, which would have made her only 12 years old.
So you could see all the triggers starting to fire in deputy tuning, knowing something wasn't right.
He's lying. She's 16. He has her lying. All the while, the parent, the mother is somewhere, probably the father long gone, unfortunately. That's what it sounds like to me. We have this whole cycle of fathers missing, and now the daughters are going missing too, and the mother is sitting there going crazy. All the while, the Grinch has her daughter, right?
And he immediately started to dig into what was going on there.
That's right. Mr. How Hot says, put him under the jail. That's right. Don't even give him a cell. Put him right under there.
Which is what we do best.
The sheriff's office believes the teen first met McGrath online. During the stop, McGrath then changes his story and now calls the girl a friend after initially telling the deputy that she was his cousin.
I met her in Charlotte.
In Charlotte. How old are you? You're 37, and you're friends with a 16-year-old girl?
McGrath later claims that the teenager told him that she was actually 19 and that the two of them were heading to Orlando.
His story is changing just like the March wind, right? And that's only in seconds that we get the chance to hear this.
To find some arcades.
Our indications indicate that they were staying probably in another state, not in the state of Florida, and didn't come into Florida until Sunday when we...
Okay, guys, we have our attorney in the building. It's nice to have an attorney on deck, man. We're so blessed here watching the world. James says in Florida, that's a life felony, could be capital felony. Thank you very much. We have the counsel in the building. Shout out to you, James. You're golden around here.
Intercepted them.
Deputies would eventually take McGrath into custody and search his car, finding counterfeit money and marijuana inside.
And I've only seen this just a couple of times in my 23-year career. And it was fortunate that our deputy, who was, even though it was a minor
Uncommon Woman says, stupid is as stupid does. All right. Thank you very much. Gold Digger says, shame. New Jerseyan says, right, Mel. His story is steady changing. That's right.
Traffic infraction encountered such a what could have potentially been a horrific case.
The Putnam County Sheriff's Office says the teenage girl is still in custody of the Florida Department of Children and Families until she's reunited back with her mother. So far, McGrath is charged with drug possession, interference with custody of a minor, and could face federal charges as well.
This could have went way worse for the mother. Her daughter could have been found someplace, but it looks like at least she'll have her daughter coming home if the authorities don't take her of some sort. We don't know. But here's another story that's quite interesting. There's a man on death row, and he's due to lose his life tomorrow night. And he was involved in a crime many years ago, and now he's paying the price, although he's not the one who took the life of the individual. Let's check this out. I want you guys to pay attention. But he's trying to avoid the death penalty.
Week, the state of Alabama plans to execute a 75-year-old man for a killing they know he did not commit.
I shouldn't die for something I haven't done.
His name is Charles Sonny Burton. Days ago, he called me from death row.
Hey, I've been here a long time.
In 1991, Sonny and 5 other men committed an armed robbery at an AutoZone. He grabbed cash, then ran outside and waited at the car. Inside, an accomplice shot and killed a customer named Doug Battle.
Did you know a murder was about to happen?
No, I would have stopped that. I would have stopped that.
The man who pulled the trigger was sentenced to death. Years later, a circuit court reduced that sentence to life in prison, finding his...
So the guy who actually committed the murder had his sentence from death penalty reduced to life, right? But still, the guy who grabbed money and ran outside is due to have his life ended tomorrow night. What do you guys think about this situation? I would love to hear, especially we have an attorney in the building. Would be great to hear from you as well.
Lawyer rendered ineffective assistance during the penalty phase. That gunman died behind bars in 2020. But Sonny Burton, the man who had been outside at the car, is scheduled to be killed on March 12th, even though he never killed anyone.
I ain't participate.
All right. Caprello says he did it. Okay. All right, Caprello, he just did it. What does that mean? Okay. Pretty Ting says abolish the death penalty. Okay. Thank you. We have some different stance on this. All right. Okay. Gold Digger says we're almost there. Let's have Mel get to 100 likes. Okay. We're almost there. Thank you, guys. Caprello says he's wasted enough resources. All right. He wants to get it over with. Okay.
In that kind of a way.
Sonny has been fighting his death sentence for 3 decades.
Okay. So we have the legal counsel thoughts on it. James says, if you are a part of a robbery and someone is killed, you are still guilty. All right. That is very common. We see that a lot on the first 48, right?
He's lost all of his appeals. Prosecutors argue he was the ringleader of the group, a claim Sonny denies.
I didn't assist nobody. I didn't aid nobody. I didn't tell nobody to shoot nobody.
Now he has an unlikely ally, the victim's daughter, Tory Battle. She recently published an op-ed urging Alabama Governor Kay Ivey to spare Sonny Burton's life.
Wow, that says a lot about her, right? She's coming forward. Her father lost his life in that AutoZone or Advanced Auto, whatever that store was. And now she's coming forward to fight on behalf of the man who was associated with it. And although allegedly he wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, she feels that he should not lose his life. And so much so that she's advocating for him to retain what bit of life he has left. What a noble lady. But I would imagine some people would say she is out of pocket too. We got people here thinking from different reference points, right?
She wrote, as I've grown older, I've come to understand that justice is not about vengeance. It's about truth, proportionality, and fairness. Adding, no one from the state has ever sat with me to explain why Alabama believes it must execute a man who did not kill my father. The explanation is called the felony murder rule.
People who are convicted and serving sentences for felony murder did not commit an intentional killing.
Dr. Nazgul Gandnoush is the director of research at the Sentencing Project, a nonprofit that advocates for effective crime policies. She says felony murder is a distinctly American legal doctrine that can turn...
All right, guys, since we have an attorney in the audience, James, I want to just ask, is this very common throughout all the states, or is it just maybe a handful?
And participating in certain felonies into a murder conviction if someone is killed.
Felony murder allows for everybody involved in the underlying offense to be treated by the
Guys, we only need, in accordance with New Jersey, and we only need 5 more likes to hit 100. Thank you so much for that.
legal system as if they committed an intentional murder.
You could be convicted of murder and be considered a killer, even if you weren't present at the scene.
Absolutely.
It's put tens of thousands of people in prison and disproportionately affects people of color. No other developed country follows this law the way we do. England.
These are the conversations you really need to have with the younger generation, with the children in your family, your kids, and tell them, because a lot of people think, well, I was there, but I didn't pull the trigger. I was in the car, but I did not have drugs on my person. They think that somehow that will vindicate them. But in different states, you can have major problems. I know an individual that was flying with a weapon, starting in a state that it was okay, and also the final state, but he got caught up on his the connecting flight in that state, and now he's fighting a big battle. So education is the key, and as we are coming along before the next generation, we should always reach back to tell them and try to guide them in the right way to go, even though they may not be very acceptive to it. We should try our best to help the next generation. Let's see. James says that's the felony murder rule, all states. Okay, so that's every state. Caprello says criminals get more rights than the victims. America is finished. And James says if you knew and was home in bed and you are still guilty of felony murder. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for all of the good, solid advice from an attorney.
Banned it in 1957. Today, 48 states have some version of felony murder. Only Kentucky and Hawaii do not. In Florida, more than 1,500 people are in prison for felony murder, representing nearly 1 out of every 10 murder convictions in the state. Ryan Hollies was one of them.
Never in my entire childhood did I ever have a brush with law.
Never.
Nope. Never been arrested in my entire life.
Then came March 10th, 2003. Ryan was 20 years old, living in Pensacola. He and his roommates threw a party.
And I ended up drinking and going to sleep.
Before dawn, a friend named Billy woke him up. He was with a few other guys Ryan says he didn't really know.
Billy is asking to borrow the keys to my car. They're laughing and joking about it, saying that they're going to go commit a robbery. But yet at the same time, they're also talking about going to get food.
And what do you tell Billy?
I say yes, because he'd borrowed the keys to my car plenty of times before. And then I went back to sleep.
Less than an hour later, Ryan woke up to a crash. His car was in his backyard. The men were burning their clothes. Ryan saw them pull a safe from the back seat.
I would have never have let them get the damn keys to my car if I thought they were serious.
But it was more serious than Ryan knew. During the robbery, 18-year-old Jessica Snyder, who'd been at the party just hours before, was beaten to death with the butt of a shotgun one of the men found in her house. Within minutes, police were at Ryan's door.
When the sheriffs came, the first thing I did was I started crying. And I told them I wanted to talk to them.
And what do you say to them?
I let them know exactly what happened.
He said he had nothing to hide, that he'd done nothing wrong.
I just want to read you something.
All right, so he just happened to be sleeping throughout.
I read back to him his statement to police about what the men told him before he handed over his keys.
And you said, well, they said something about going over to...
All right, we hit 100 likes. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for all the support. James says, just what I said, Mel. He was home, still guilty. All right.
Jessica's mom's house, and I don't know, beating her up or whatever. So you knew that something bad was about to happen, is basically what that's saying.
I never took it serious.
Ryan had no idea he'd just given law enforcement all they needed to charge him with murder. The prosecutor's logic fit on a bumper sticker. No car, no crime.
I'm in shock. Complete shock.
You had no idea this was coming?
No idea.
On the day of Ryan's trial, his mother, Sylvia, sat in the front row.
I was holding on to a rosary in my hand, and I could have sworn it was going to go through my skin. I held it so tight.
The trial barely lasted 8
Thank you, Jack.
hours.
Prosecution makes its case. Defense makes his case, jury deliberates, and comes back with a decision all in a single day.
Yep. By 6 o'clock that night, I was back in the county jail with a natural life sentence.
Even though Ryan had been asleep when Jessica Snyder was killed, unaware her murder was happening, he received the same sentence as the man who beat her to death.
Life without the possibility of parole.
Yep. I was like, there's no way.
Ryan's mother turned her outrage into action.
I wrote to everybody and anybody that would listen.
By 2014, Ryan's case caught the attention of Florida's Clemency Board. They held a hearing. Jessica's father and sister argued Ryan should die in prison.
Please renew our faith in our judicial system by keeping this guy in prison for the rest of his life.
He made the wrong decisions. To this day, he doesn't feel guilty about it.
Do you feel like you should accept some culpability at this point, that you're somewhat responsible
for her death?
Yeah.
That's tough. I don't know. I don't know, Dan.
Yeah.
Something I still, golly, man. I don't know.
It's okay. Take your time. What are you feeling right now?
Of course. That girl shouldn't have died.
No matter what, everybody freaking blames me too.
Despite the pleas from Jessica's family, Rick Scott, Florida's governor at the time, reduced Ryan's sentence to 25 years to life.
I believe Ryan Hawley's case is why we have the authority to commute sentences.
But Ryan remained in prison for another decade.
There he goes. Oh my God.
In December 2024, the gates finally opened. His mother was waiting.
I love you. I love you.
But Ryan's freedom comes with a footnote.
Wow.
A long one. He's on probation for the next decade, with a list of things he's not allowed to do.
You could go back to prison for the rest of your life.
Yep.
For being in a bar.
Yep. Even if I'm not even the one drinking.
Ryan Hawley was released because a governor showed mercy. Now in Alabama, Sonny Burton is waiting to see if Governor K.
One poor decision can ruin your legacy, right? I give this public lecture. It's called Chaos. And in the lecture, I talk about how one little mistake while you're a teenager can set your whole life off and bring you a lot of harm. So this story, I'll definitely have to include. But it's a good example of how just one night being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or not fully understanding your surroundings or the people you have in your life, can be detrimental to your whole life and legacy.
Ivy will do the same for him. Last month, when she set Burton's execution date, she said she has no current plans to grant clemency in this case. But she added she retains her authority to change her mind at any time. The Alabama Attorney General's office told us in a statement, the jury unanimously recommended the death penalty.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Earlier this week, I tracked down one of those jurors, Priscilla Townsend.
When you voted to sentence him to death, you knew that he was not the trigger man, right?
Yes, we did.
But more than 3 decades later, Priscilla, who asked that we not show her face, told me she regrets her decision.
The death sentence is too harsh for someone that did not pull the trigger.
How are you going to feel if he doesn't get mercy and he's killed?
Well, I feel horrible about it. I don't understand why at the point in time when the other gentleman, when his sentence was lessened, why no one came back and assisted Sonny. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
And Priscilla isn't alone. 5 other jurors from Sonny's 1992 trial have signed.
Okay, James says juveniles under 16 can't be sentenced to life without parole anymore. All right, thank you for all of that good legal information. I know everybody in the audience really do appreciate it. Everybody give a shout out to James. He's always here helping us understand the law throughout the week. It's amazing.
Sworn affidavit saying they now regret their decision to send him to death, believing the governor should show Burton mercy and save his life. Days ago, Sonny's lawyer filed a final appeal, this time with the U.S. Supreme Court. The Alabama AG's office replied saying his death sentence is long overdue.
These may be the final public words that people hear from you.
The minutes are ticking down on Sonny Burton's life.
What do you want people listening to this to know?
I want people that listen to me to know that I didn't kill nobody. These are my last words.
Dan Slepian, NBC News.
All right, so tomorrow night is the night for him. I'll keep following this to see what actually happens in regards to this man, whether or not he is executed or not. We want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I know we went over our allotted time, over an hour, but I think we covered a lot of good ground. We had a good show today, I believe. James says, I had a guy sentenced to 50 years for rugs under the Rockefeller law reduced to time served at 17 years. Okay, wow. That's amazing. Thank you. And thank you for using those YouTube friendly words. That's a good reminder for us all, including myself. Stella will be very happy you used the right selection of words. She's big on words around here. And I often fail because I use some of those words that are not kind to YouTube, but it's tough to do it when you're spitting out so many words within a show, but we're trying to work at it. Let's see. Tonight, we have a show at 8 p.m. with Candace Kelly. She's a law professor out of New Jersey. She's going to help us understand a lot of these different cases in regards to, we have Nancy Guthrie, we have the Epstein files, right? So much going on with the Epstein files. And let me just break this down for a minute. A lot of people feel that the Epstein files has a lot to do with what's happening in regards to Iran. Let me explain to you. And let me set the stage that this is not some philosophy that I'm pushing. I'm just trying to help you understand what people think. Many feel that Netanyahu, right, of Israel, was able to, and we'll just say Israel, was able to acquire what they would call dirt on Donald Trump by way of Epstein. And now they're trying to say that Epstein was a intelligence agent of some sort, or some are trying to say he was a part of the Israeli Mossad, which is similar to the CIA in the United States, and they operate in peculiar ways. So they're trying to say that Epstein was unalived. In fact, in the files, Epstein's brother, Mark, he came forward in the files. He reported to the FBI that he felt that Donald Trump was responsible for the death of his brother, and that it was no way possible for his brother to commit the unalivement, we're going to call it, speaking of words. There's no way that Epstein would have did it to himself because he had some legal actions coming up and he was trying to get out. And also, on Epstein's person, they found documentation that showed that he was thinking about getting out. He had some sort of escape plan that many people, by putting two and two together, that Epstein was trying to figure out a way, and it wasn't by taking out his own life. Especially when you think about all the assets that the man had, many people feel it was less likely that he would want to do it to himself. And then you look at all of the just so happens in the case, the coincidences, two officers that were supposed to be patrolling, and they just happened to be sleeping. Two cameras, at least outside of Epstein's cell, and they just happened to not be working, right? Then on top of that, at about 6 something in the morning, this actually went through the court system. I confirmed it. Someone went on the 4chan chat, and they claimed to have been working at that prison, right, or that jail. Now, keep in mind, folks, that particular jail is right beside the federal courthouse down in Manhattan, where I actually attend these trials, such as Sean Diddy Combs, Luigi Mangione, L.A. Reid was about to come up, right? So that you could actually look out from the cafeteria and you could actually see the jail. So while a person, and James could elaborate more, while you're attending a trial in the federal building, instead of taking you all the way back over the Brooklyn Bridge to the MDC, typically they house you. This is what one of the high-ranking friends of mine that is there in the federal court, right? Thankful to my high-ranking friends. But anyway, typically they house you right across the street. So that's why in Diddy's case, every day they would take him from Brooklyn, the MDC, bring him to the federal court. At the end of the day, they take him back. When I saw Nicolas Maduro come to court, right, they pulled him out of Brooklyn, bring him to court. And you should see the helicopters, and they have an armored vehicle there. I recorded it all on the live, okay? But typically, he would just go to the building across the street if it's a federal trial in place, right? Also, Harvey Weinstein, his case is coming up. I'm going to be covering it too, okay? So Epstein actually died in that building. And if you go down to the city now, that whole building is dark. For some reason, it's shut down. We don't know the exact reason. They said it needs some repairs. Who knows? But all of these weird phenomena happen in regards to Epstein, and people are coming up with a lot of different philosophies and speculations about it, okay? So the reason why they're trying to tie Donald Trump, Epstein, Israel, and Iran is because they're saying that Epstein was an agent. He was out here gathering information, getting people in some peculiar situations. You know how they use the expression catching you with your pants down? Yeah, this is real talk. This is what Epstein allegedly was doing to people around the world who were high officials. This is the rumor, okay? But not only was it about money, right? We already learned that over $1 billion went to and fro with Epstein as far as from people, as far as all the money being exchanged. Who are all these people and what was really happening? We don't know. But at any rate, they're trying to say that Epstein had some sort of information on the president, and that information was sent to other countries. And now people are trying to say that Israel somehow have information about Donald Trump and basically making him go and do this action with Iran. So these are all the things that we see floating around. Every day there's a new type of phenomenon in regards to what people are coming up with. But we see all of this. But what does it mean? Is there any truth to this? Was Iran a threat to the American people, right? All of this is so confusing, but I'm here to tell you, we just cover the news. We see the rumors, we see the news coming out. And guess what? Out of all that information, it's like an information mill. I doubt if we'll ever get the real truth about anything. In fact, when Donald Trump said that he would release the UFO files, we'd also find out what happened to Kennedy, right? JFK, what happened to Martin Luther King, because everybody wanted to know the real facts. I remember on the very first day, Donald Trump said, yeah, that's right. He was talking to one of the ladies there that worked with him in his administration. He says, oh, yeah, we want to know about these UFO files. Go get an answer. We're going to release it to you. I actually have the video. We haven't heard anything more until Barack Obama came out about 3 weeks ago. And Barack Obama says that UFOs exist. He said that they're not at area, 51 or whatever it is. But he says that they do exist somewhere in the world. Now, what's puzzling about this, Donald Trump did not come back and say, oh, Barack Obama, you little liar. He didn't say that. He said, now this is the president of the United States talking about a prior president. He says Barack Obama is going to get in trouble for revealing confidential information. So what does that paint a picture? Donald Trump did not dispute it. He actually gave credence to what Barack Obama was saying because he said he's giving out this high-tech information, right? Secret information, which we know the government is not a big fan of you doing that. So at any rate, this gives you an idea of why so many people are just trying to decipher the real truth. That's why in the comment section, we get all different type of scenarios that I think I've given you a general synopsis of what we're hearing at a larger scale. At any rate, we're done for today. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We had a great show, right? And I look forward to coming back on tonight with Candace Kelly to talk about some of these matters from a legal perspective. Tomorrow, we'll have news at noon again, but on Friday, I'll be in Washington, D.C. So hopefully, I'll do some live streaming to give you some inside shots. So it'll be amazing. I'll have a chance to meet the mayor in Washington, D.C., and hopefully that'll get us closer to the White House. As you guys know, I'm trying to become a part of the press for the White House. This is all trailblazing. Most of these streets, like when I covered the deposition for the Clintons, they don't like to see the YouTubers. I know it. The big mainstream media, they're repulsed at the, they call them knockoff news reporters or YouTubers. Whatever box they want to put you in, that's what they say. But I'm here for it, I'm not a guy like a little short guy that you could easily push around, And so that's the beautiful thing about it. And I stand on the solid ground. So I'm here for it. When I went out to Nancy Guthrie's house, the mainstream media was pushing back so hard. You would imagine with a person going missing, you would want everybody on the mountaintop saying, hey, Nancy Guthrie, let's go find her. But instead, you have people saying, hey, you don't belong here, buddy. People are pushing back. And then you have the neighbors saying, listen, all of you guys are the same to us. We want you all out of here. Skedaddle. That's what they say. They say so many people go missing every day. Why are you out here standing around stalking this lady's house that we don't even know if she's coming back? This is what people were saying. So I just say all of that to give you guys an idea that when you're trying to do something that maybe a lot of people don't have my angle, because I cover the news, I'm not talking about gossip and all that. I mean, we do cover it sometime when I have guests on. We will be covering some of those topics, right? They're fair game. But for the most part, we're here for the news, and we have a strong team now. We have a lot of voices, a lot of people backing us, and it's only going to get bigger and better. And definitely, we try to bring high quality. We try to look good, not just bummy out there standing in front of Nancy Guthrie's home. So that kind of set back some of the weasels that I ran into. There's a few weasels. They were news reporters out there reporting on YouTubers. So let me explain. When Nancy Guthrie, when these cases start to dwindle down like Sean Diddy Combs, the reporters start to report on whoever's standing close. So they look over and said, oh, what are you here for? Okay, let's go do a story on Mel. Let's go do a story on JLR. Let's go do a story on 857 Tucson. Let's do a story on Alex. Let's do a story on Mark the Shark. You see what I'm saying? So this is how it goes. But when we come and we're legitimate, and although we don't stand behind some large corporations like most people do, we still report from a high level, and there's a lot of people that support it, and we look good while we're doing it. So that was one of the things that one of the reporters that just was being a nuisance and trying to report on other people. He said, well, you look good, but there's more to the story than that. And we have a bigger mission. We have a bigger plan. And it's going to take a lot to stop it because there's many of us. And as I went out there and I was standing with JLR and some of the other guys, I was trying to tell them, bro, when you go back to New York, there's so many of us, man. And they'll come out here in a heartbeat, And a lot of these people with the big names, they'll come out here with some smoke too if we need it. Yeah, bro. But we're trying to do this upstandingly, if that's a word, right? And we're trying to bring the news. We're trying to just mind our business, go out there streaming, not even hurting a fly, right? That's what this whole thing is about. In a year or two from now, the people that will join this work and this mission, they won't even know what a lot of us had to do to pave the way. That's how it always is when you have trailblazers. And it's for a righteous cause, because when people are going missing, and I tried to tell this to some of the people, even the weasels, I said, listen, a lot of times we come and cover the big stories, right? So that when a grandmother loses her grandchild, I remember this case down in Brooklyn about 2 years ago. This teenage girl went missing. Her grandmother had no clue what happened to her, and still don't to this day. Nobody's shedding light on the case. So when we cover Nancy Guthrie and then we pull up on a case that nobody's paying attention, we can bring those numbers, right? We're not waiting on somebody at a big corporation saying that this young girl is worthy. No, everybody's worthy. And the world is changing because media is the new way. And believe you me, the media is going to be used whether people like it or not. And just because people don't come with the tags that you want to label them with, right? Hear me clearly. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, listen to this man. He knows what he's talking about. We are not going away. In fact, we're getting better, right? In this journey, believe me, it's a big commitment. And whoever stands in the way, then God bless America. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. I really do appreciate you guys. You guys are far too kind. You're so amazing. And we're here to help you understand what's happening or what might be happening to the best of our ability. And we look forward to doing this more and more at a higher level. Stay tuned to Watching World 777. It's not about me. It's about the audience, and I'm smart enough to know that, right? So that's why we try to stay within the scope of what people want to hear about, the people that are following these stories. We cover the high, the important, the low, right? The low is very important, right? Court cases, we cover the crimes, the true crimes. We also stay out of other people's way, and we don't bother anybody, but we're strong enough to stand our own ground, right? Don't let the suit fool you. Don't let it fool you, folks. Thank you. Have a great night. We love you. We mean well. We try to do our best. And believe me when I tell you that we are in this thing together. We don't care about the Republican, the Democrat, because we're all on the same bird. And it looks like that bird might be headed south if we don't wake up and steer it in the right direction. Let's do that before it's too late. And let's do it well. Let's do it together. And believe you me, I'm with you all the way. Have a good day. All right.
Different voices, but the same song. Loving a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Painting the night, united we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.